Evolution on the outside, revolution on the inside. This is the 5th generation Renault Clio. Is it really the new Clio? If you look at the 4th and the 5th generation side by side, you'll be excused for thinking this is a facelift. There are new headlights, new tail lamps, sharper creases on the bonnet, and to make things more confusing, generations 4 and 5 have very similar dimensions. The new Clio has 405 centimeters in length and is 12 millimeters shorter than the model it replaces. The wheelbase is now 2,583 millimeters, a 6 millimeter cut. The new Clio is 144 centimeters tall instead of 145 centimeters, but the width increased to almost 180 centimeters from 173. Ford Fiesta and Peugeot 208 are slightly longer, but narrower. Okay, but since everyone is about the same size, and the new Clio is very similar to the old one, the same goes for the Fiesta, by the way, what does Renault have to stand out among other superminis? Renault doesn't beat about the bush and says, from the outside clients like the Clio, so it evolved. However, the interior was so successful, it needed a revolution. Let me explain. Before my French viewers descend upon the comment section and tell me that the Teutonic forces personified by Volkswagen do exactly the same, and that the Golf, it looks the same, boring and ugly for the last 40 years, while the Clio blossoms with every generation, huh? I would like to say I agree with what Renault has done here. If something works, there's no need to fix it, and if something doesn't work because it's crap, then it makes sense to listen to criticisms, draw conclusions, and implement new solutions. And the Clio, the new Clio interior, is an answer to a long list of grievances. Cars today are full of electronics and driver aids. There is nothing we can do about it. That's the law. But in order to use all these electronic gizmos, you need the virtual instrument cluster and large displays on the center stack. I often read comments about how they look and feel like cheap tablets, and indeed, unless you go for a premium brand, it's hard to find a good infotainment system in terms of how the screen is built and how the interface is designed. Look at the Megane, Talisman, Scenic, Espace, they all have the same interface, which looks like it was designed by the Minitel team. If you don't know what Minitel is, Google it. Instead of putting the same old infotainment in the new Clio, the designers took everything that Renault and the competition have to offer, they compacted it and threw it in the trash. I haven't seen something that good in Renault since ever. I'm sorry, but this is going to be a long talk about the infotainment system, so if you are waiting for the other details about this car, please go make yourself a sandwich. I should be done by the time you come back. But do come back! The body is nicely finished with transparent plastic going around the edges. That rainbow effect is anti-reflective coating. The graphics are simple and modern, resolution is high, and now the best thing. This is the most intuitive interface I have ever seen in a car. The example is how to control the safety features. Instead of clicking through multi-stage menus, all you have to do is swipe and you get a picture of all the various safety systems scattered around it. Click on it to turn it on and off, as simple as that. You can also configure where the tiles go so that you get the functions you need arranged according to your logic. But engineers went further and you can now reconfigure what was once a total nuisance, at least to me. For example, Renault's version of keyless access. In Renault, I always had to deal with the self-locking and unlocking car. There is a proximity sensor in the car, so as you approach it with a key in your pocket, it unlocks, and then as you walk away, it locks again, and it makes a noise to confirm it. So I would load stuff into the boot, go open the gate, and the car would lock. Return to the car, and it would unlock, each time with a friendly beep. And it's 4 AM because I'm going out on a video shoot. Oh, how my neighbors love the press Renault cars. And yes, I could disable the proximity unlocking, but then I would have to use the remote control to actually open and close the car because there was no button on the door handle, so access was no longer keyless. And now I can individually configure proximity unlocking. I can use a button on the door handle, the car can greet me with lights as I approach and play a welcome sound, or I can turn everything off. Thank you. And what about the cockpit itself? Despite the car being wider, it still feels like a supermini inside. I don't know why they made the center console so wide at the knee level, since it's only for the gear lever. Perhaps the designers wanted to keep the proportions right, and I do see how the LED strip encloses the driver's side of the cockpit, but I keep bumping my knee on the edge of some element. Regardless of the touchscreen, Renault left a decent amount of buttons so that you can access cars' crucial functions. I could complain they are a bit small and those around the AC controls are not very well visible, but I'm not going to because they are physical buttons. Yay! The only thing that irritates me is Renault's new audio control joystick. I couldn't figure out the old one and I cannot figure out this one. You know why? Because I can't flippin' see it behind the steering wheel! There is a smartphone cubby with USB ports and a 12-volt socket. You can fit a small bottle of water in the door bins, the glove box is deep, storage under the armrest is small. There are cup holders as well as a place to put away the card key. And there's also some storage over the left knee. The cabin looks nicely appointed, but the plastics are not as soft to touch as they may appear at first glance. Peugeot 208 has a better quality cabin, but its infotainment system is not the most modern thing on the market. I'm surprised PSA, which now also owns Opel, didn't pool resources and design a new infotainment system for the new 208 and the new Corsa instead of pushing that fake 360 camera. Meanwhile, Renault has a proper 360-degree camera which launches as soon as you start the car, and you don't have to wait half an hour for the whole system to boot like in a Land Rover or something. The Clio also gets park assist. It works better than in the Peugeot, which is no great achievement, but it takes too long anyway, so better take those parking lessons and learn to park on your own. Or get a BMW 1 Series, which parks brilliantly and costs 3 Clios. The engines. There is a range of 3-cylinder petrols with power ranging from 65 to 100 horsepower and a 130 horsepower 4-cylinder petrol as well. In some markets, you may still get the 1.5-liter diesel 115 horsepower. Less powerful petrol models come with a 5-speed manual, and the 130 horsepower petrol comes with a 7-speed double-clutch gearbox. This is the 100 horsepower version. With 160 Nm of torque, it accelerates from 0 to 100 km per hour in less than 12 seconds and should use just above 5 liters per 100 km according to WLTP. And that's achievable. I will admit this engine is not for enthusiastic driving. Also, the gearing is rather short, so you'll have to upshift a couple of times during overtaking on a country road. And there is no 6th gear, which would come in handy on motorways because sound insulation is poor. Never mind the 3-cylinder Renault engine sounds rough at low speeds, especially when it's cold. Above 100 km per hour, it gets noticeably loud inside, to the point you can't hear the indicators. I realize the Clio is mainly a city car, but sometimes you need to take the ring road to get to another part of town. And all these hard plastics further amplify the noise. Peugeot 208 is better in this department. Handling is much better than in the Peugeot 208, even when driving in a spirited manner. I know where the Clio will go, and it will go where I point it. The steering may not be as direct as in the Peugeot 208 or the Ford Fiesta, but the suspension is a good compromise between sporty and comfortable. Visibility is an issue. Somehow Clio's right wing mirror doesn't have enough curvature, and I did manage to cut a few people off. This car really needs the blind spot monitoring system. Also, the central rear-view mirror doesn't show you cars which are far behind because of the sloping roofline, so you have to lean to actually see what's further behind you. Let me go back to the driver aids and infotainment for a minute. Now, the lane assist vibrates instead of beeping, and I like that. However, it is also too sensitive and it intervenes too often, in my opinion. I like that the traffic sign information is displayed on the infotainment screen as long as you're not using Android Auto, and on the virtual instrument cluster regardless of whether you're using Android Auto or onboard SatNav. The car reads speed limits as you drive along. Moreover, even Android SatNav directions are displayed in the virtual cockpit. I tu mamy offa. I also like the distance indicator, which shows your distance in colors and seconds. It's easy to see if you're driving too close to someone. Remember, the faster you're going, the bigger the distance, and you'll need to increase the distance to be safe. 50 kilometers per hour is about 14 meters per second, and if you're driving 90 kilometers per hour, that's about 25 meters per second. And on a good day, your reaction time is about a second. Other minor details which have no impact on the driving, but I simply like them, include configuring the icon showing my location on the map, as well as this tiny car on the Speedo, which blinks along with me. That's so cute. Less cute is the amount of space in the back. I can fit behind the driver's seat set to my driving position, but I wouldn't mind a couple of centimeters more legroom. The rear door pockets barely fit a half-a-liter bottle. There are no USB ports, not a 12-volt socket, but there is a surprisingly good amount of headroom for this segment. The Clio boot is a mystery to me. Just to remind you, the 4th and the 5th generation are about the same size. Now, the 4th generation Clio had 300 liters boot capacity, and now Renault claims the Clio 5 has 391 liters boot capacity. I have no clue how Renault measured the boot to achieve this result, because using a simple measuring tape, I got about 275 liters, add another 16 for the spare wheel under the floor, and maybe you'll get 291. An honest mistake, right? If it's a mistake, Renault doesn't know about it, because 391 liters appears in the official press spec sheet and even in Renault's official video materials. Interestingly enough, specification on the German Renault website says 340. If you're a Renault employee and you have some insight, feel free to contact me and explain what's going on. Besides the inconsistent boot volume data, the boot has a regular shape, and that's a plus. There are shopping bag hooks which are not as useless as they look, and that's a plus as well. There is a double floor, and you can even lock it in an open position like this to fiddle with stuff underneath, and that's a plus as well. And if you put it down like this, you also get a flat loading area. And there is also a proper handle to close the boot. So Renault has done its homework. However, not everything is hunky-dory. First of all, the boot release button is over the license plate, where it is dirty every time it rains. Secondly, the load lip is high, regardless of what position the double floor is in. It's hard to take out heavier items. And thirdly, the boot lighting. On the first day, I couldn't find a switch, because there isn't any. Boot light is connected to the dome light, which is fine. I went looking for a switch, but there isn't any. There are only the map lights. It turns out the dome light is operated via the infotainment system. Someone got a bit carried away there, no? Prices of the Renault Clio start at €13,000. In Poland, we get this RS line trim, which in Germany is the Intense with an RS line package on top, with options that gives us about €22,000. The Renault Clio 5 is a great improvement over the outgoing model. I'd take it for the multimedia alone. Maybe Renault did take a shortcut or two, but generally speaking, they listened to what the people, including nitpicking journalists like myself, had to say about the car, and they improved it. And how do you like the new Clio? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to get more of my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews. Don't forget to like and share this video and hit the notification bell to be reminded about new uploads I post every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.